Hey there everyone. Today we're going to learn how to start a Snapchat Lens Studio from scratch. Let's get started. Hey there everyone. I hope you've had a good last week. And today, we'll continue on in our series of Lens Studio practice / just learning how to get creative with Lens Studio. Today, our primary focus will be starting a project from scratch. Recently, in the previous videos, we started with a template, and the same template at that, in order to show you the navigation and what you would usually see within Lens Studio. Today, I'm going to start a project from scratch so that we can learn the ins and outs of the program, as well as primarily learning how to import objects and textures and scripts and 100 other different things into Lens Studio, so that if we have our own creative ideas, we can import them directly into the project. If you're someone who prefers sketching by hand, if you're someone who likes building things with their hand, you can genuinely find a way to bring those things into the 3D world with a couple of programs and a couple of technologies that are free and open for everyone to use today. So today we'll focus on teaching you guys what those programs are, as well as showing you how to utilize them so that you can bring your actual ideas into Lens Studio instead of having to build from a template. Let's get started. So for today's video, our setup will be pretty simple since we're literally going to be starting from scratch. Instead of choosing from the templates that we have available through the Lens Studio, which hopefully you guys have actually played around with, we're just going to start a brand new project. With this, we have a blank slate and can really modify things to whichever manner we'd like. Now, it'll take a second to load, and depending on your computer, you might have to wait longer than usual, but it shouldn't take any longer than a template. Now, you'll notice that we're actually thrown into a bit of a different view than we're normally introduced to. Here in this setting, we only have a camera and then the lighting set up for whatever we're going to place in here. So today we're going to learn how to import and organize the different types of objects that we can place into the scene. Previously I had gone through a list, but today I'm primarily going to focus on what type of file types you need, as well as how to get them into the program from essentially straight from your head into creation into the program. The reason being that you can't actually 3D model inside of the Lens Studio software. You'll find that you'll have to use an external application to make your own ideas into a reality. So our primary focus for today will be to accomplish that task. So in order to get started, what I'll be doing is introducing you to a couple of resources that I've actually used throughout my experience in the realm of 3D work, as well as some resources that are free and easy to use. Now, all of these resources won't be the easiest things to learn, and some of them will be something we actually run a video series on individually. And the reason we will be using these resources is, again, because Lens Studio doesn't allow for us to make and or create our own objects and or really bring our 3D ideas into fruition directly through their software. So today I'm going to start off with Sketchfab. Sketchfab is a place for creators to upload their 3D models to share and show off. And really, it's a great place to create a portfolio if you're looking to get into 3D. Aside from the fact, though, we do have a section of the site that allows you to download free 3D models to use for your own projects. So if we look through the selection, we'll actually have to make a couple of decisions here before we can bring something into our Lens Studio. The reason being is if it has too many polygonal faces and or a high poly count, essentially meaning it's got a lot of details, a lot of corners, a lot of smooth edges, it'll take a lot longer for a phone or another potential AR device to be able to download and re-render whatever the 3D model is. Because the more polygons or triangles, the more data that needs to be loaded in. It's a pretty simple concept. But with this being the case, we'll purposely try and find something that's low poly, really easy to render. And with this, we'll find something that's a simple shape. That way, when we load this into our project, we don't have to worry about our 3D software potentially not being able to handle it if we're on a lower end device, as well as being able to load things in a quicker fashion. Now, the second thing we have to consider is the file type. When it comes to Lens Studio, it can only interpret two types of file types, OBJs and FBXs. Now, these file types are specifically made to be really simple to load, really quick to load. So what I'll be looking for is something with simple shapes, relatively low poly count, and right now I'm kind of digging this falling Game Boy. So what I'll do is click on the model, check to see if it has the file type I'm looking for. So here I'll download the 3D model, and look at that, we have an FBX. Now let's say you choose a model and it isn't the file type you want. There's still a chance that, depending on the file type it is, that you'd be able to go to an external third-party service and find a way to convert it. Now, one of these services, let me go ahead and download this real quick, will actually be the next program we'll focus on, just to give you guys an opportunity to see what you can potentially do if you're looking to get into 3D. Before transitioning over into Blender, I would like to shout out the creator of this 3D model, Babayo, or at least that's how I'm assuming it's pronounced. Now, moving on to Blender. Now, Blender is where the bread and butter of 3D modeling will be found for you. Unless you can afford a multi-$1,000 software, Blender will most likely be your way and introduction into the world of 3D. Now, with Blender, we have an open source system to make almost anything that you can consider linked to 3D. Now, the reason being, well, specifically, there's a lot of great developers who contribute to this project, but with this software, we have the ability to do almost anything you can think of. Rendering, modeling, sculpting, animating, 2D animation in a method, VFX, simulation, more computation-based things, video editing, scripting, and interface design. Now, with these things, you can really make anything you can think of. Just a 3D model for a game. You can do some modeling for that. You can do sculpting for a game as well with certain upcoming technologies. Alongside that, you can do rendering to make your own wallpapers, render out an image. You can render an entire scene for some sort of video. Really, the possibilities are endless in this case, because you have a complete control over a 3D space, from the lighting to the textures to the way everything interacts here. Now, obviously, this is a lot more work, and you have to have a certain knowledge on the background, and a certain background to be able to use this software, which is why we will be doing a video on how to utilize Blender in the near future. However, for the time being, this might be a tool that could be great to tinker around with while you're trying to manipulate the 3D models or objects you get from Sketchfab. Just a great starting point, a good way to get your toes wet into the world of 3D before you really dive deep. So, now that I've covered the 3D, I'd like to move over into a 2D option for if you're just looking to do texturing and or things that involve a lot of planes. So let's move over. Now, as the final software I'd like to show off that is fully free is our option of GIMP. GIMP is a GNU image manipulation program. Just call it GIMP. There's no need to say the full name. But with that in consideration, you can essentially think of it as Photoshop for free. Now, that might sound unattractive to some people, because Photoshop and Adobe products are really high-end and allow for easy use as well as providing tutorials nowadays. However, GIMP has a pretty strong community and allows for people from any age or any background to really just be able to pick this up as long as they've got a computer and a mouse. Now, with this, we can also design graphic elements. We can add programming and all of this. But really, all we want to use GIMP for in these situations is just to create textures and or map out different designs that we might want to apply to our 3D objects or to the backgrounds of our 3D scenes in Lens Studio. So with that, it's pretty straightforward. Will be one of the easier programs to learn if you're looking to get into 3D, and is a great stepping point before you dive into something like Blender. So with that, let's go ahead and import the object we downloaded earlier into Lens Studio. So to get started, what we'll do to import our project for today, or just a 3D model of your choosing, is go ahead and come over to, let's see, we're going to look through here, File, Import. Now, if you're a shortcut junkie, you would use Control-Shift-I, as stated right there, right here. And with this, we'll go ahead and select our document for this project. So I'll find Business Boy here, and here I'll be able to choose what parts of that project that I'd like to import directly into the program. From here, we can go ahead and adjust certain settings, but keep it simple for now. If there's a specific thing you need to do with the 3D object, you probably already know what it is, and if not, a quick Google will fix that issue for you. So we'll directly import our 3D object in. Again, this is an FBX, and with this we can see over here in our preview, and as well as in our actual 3D preview within the scene, that our object is in here. Now you'll notice that our texture isn't in quite just yet, and we'll actually touch on that in the next episode. Sadly, the introduction of these softwares have taken longer than expected, but I think this is a great point to end the video off, because we've gotten our 3D model imported, and we've also learned ways to create our own to import them directly into this program. So with that, next episode we'll focus on bringing in textures and 2D sprites into Lens Studio in order to bring a little bit more life to our 3D models, as well as potentially adding things like particle effects and just a background to a lens in Lens Studio. So until then, have a nice week.